When I was a little kid, my dad introduced me to the Rocky movies, and right away I was sure I wanted to be a boxer. I even got my first lesson from him before I was big enough to fit into my gloves. But then he showed me Bruce Lee, and that ended my boxing aspirations. I was mesmerized by what Lee could do, and I knew I had to learn how. Then came Chuck Norris, and then Van Damme. Before long, I started my own martial arts journey. For me, Van Damme was the gold standard. His kicks were clean, crisp, controlled, and sky high. But there was another lesser-known karate movie star who I think is still underrated to this day, Mark Dacascos. I first saw him, I think, in Only the Strong, and I must have watched that about 1,000,000,000 times on late-night cable. Later, it was American Samurai, which I loved so much that my aunt, who ran a video store, just let me keep the tape I had borrowed from her store. So I'll admit up front, I've got a soft spot for Dacascos, which is why, against all odds, I actually enjoyed Kickboxer 5 more than I expected to. Let's dive in. So the first thing you notice about Kickboxer 5 is how cheap it looks. The cinematography is flat, the sound design is thin, and the whole production feels like it's working off the scraps from a Canon Pictures movie. The movie was shot in South Africa, and not for creative reasons, just because it was cheaper to film there in the mid-90s. And at the time, South African villains were practically a cliche in Hollywood. Lethal Weapon 2 and Van Damme's Hard Target being two notable action flicks that used South Africans as heavies. Here, though, the setting isn't used for atmosphere or commentary. It's just anonymous streets and warehouses and a bunch of missed opportunities to ground the film in anything real and relevant. So that's setting. Let's talk plot. What is this movie about? Well, here's the official synopsis. After his friend and fellow fighter is murdered, American kickboxer Matt Reeves, played by Mark Dacascos, travels to South Africa to uncover the truth. He learns that the killing is part of a larger scheme by Negaal, a disgraced former fighter who has started his own international kickboxing federation. Negaal is strong-arming fighters into joining his organization, declaring their titles worthless if they refuse, and if they resist, he has them eliminated. To stop him, Reeves must take the fight into the ring, battling a series of assassins and hired champions until he can face Negaal's empire head-on. Man, this franchise really did the Sloan brothers dirty. First, the original fails to mention that David Sloan even exists. Then the sequel kills off Kurt and Eric with the flimsiest of explanations. And then Kickboxer 5 kills David off-screen with only a few lines of dialogue and an image from a newspaper article to explain his absence from the film. You'd think after carrying the franchise for 3 movies, Sasha Mitchell's David would at least warrant a quick scene or cameo, at the very least. But nah, he's just dead, and now this previously unmentioned friend and our new hero has to avenge him, or something. In practice, the actual story of Kickboxer 5 Redemption plays like a recycled version of Kickboxer 4, only without that film's comical Tong Po to add some unintentional laughs. Bad guy Negaal is a cartoon villain with a stupid plan, and the stakes are so ridiculous that it comes off like something written by a 12-year-old. But as dumb as all of this is, the setup does what every karate movie has to do. It sets the stage for our hero to kick some ass. And speaking of our hero, Mark Dacascos is the only actor I recognize from this movie. This feels like an early entry for him because of how cheap it is, but Kickboxer 5 was already his 8th feature film. Dacascos' first starring role in a bona fide karate movie was in the 1992 Canon Films movie American Samurai, which was basically a knockoff of Enter the Dragon, but with a samurai twist. 2 adopted brothers are raised in the samurai tradition, Andrew, played by David Bradley from the American Ninja sequels, and Kenjiro, played by Mark Dacascos. When Andrew, an American, is chosen to inherit the family's sacred katana, Kenjiro is jealous and outraged, and joins the Yakuza. Disgraced and cast out by his father, he becomes a ruthless gangster and eventually faces his brother in an underground death tournament. It's cheesy and plays out like a video game, but the fights are excellent, and Dacascos, even as the over-the-top villain, steals every scene he's in. Then came Only the Strong, from 1993, a super dopey but very fun martial arts flick centered on the Brazilian art of capoeira. It's the kind of movie that lives on cable reruns and VHS nostalgia, but it showcased Dacascos' incredible athleticism. His kicks and acrobatics are front and center, and he carries the movie with this boyish charm and contagious energy. Next up from Mark was Double Dragon from 1994, the ill-fated video game adaptation. Co-starring Scott Wolf, it's a ridiculous neon-soaked mess of a film, but it gave Dacascos his first real starring role in a Hollywood picture. Even though the movie flopped, he proved he had the charisma to play alongside a mainstream actor, something most martial art stars of the era struggled to do. A few years later, he landed his best film, in my opinion, Brotherhood of the Wolf, from 2001, a French action horror hybrid where he plays Mani, a Native American who aids his partner in tracking a mysterious beast terrorizing the French countryside. The movie was stylish, ambitious, and gave Dacascos a chance to shine in a more serious role. Mark is the reason to watch Kickboxer 5. He shows more charisma than the movie deserves, and his martial arts ability is equal to Van Damme's, even if his screen presence doesn't quite reach JCVD's level. Jeff Mead, as his sidekick, is worth mentioning too. Mostly known for his stunt work, he turns in a solid performance and holds his own in the fight scenes. The guy can clearly fight, which is more than most sidekicks in this series can say. And about those fights. This is the best part of the movie. The fights are well staged, probably the best since the original. Dacascos' speed and precision are on full display, and the lesser-known fighters all bring legitimate talent to the screen. None of the fights reach the iconic level of the first Kickboxer, but they're sharp, fun, and entertaining. So, all things considered, Kickboxer 5 is my favorite of the sequels after the original. The production values are rock bottom, the villain is laughable, and the plot is paper-thin nonsense. But the fights are crisp. The supporting cast is not awful, and Mark Dacascos' likability and martial arts prowess carry the whole thing into the trash you can enjoy on a Saturday night category. I still practice martial arts, and to this day I aspire to Mark's level of skill. He's one of the great unsung heroes of martial arts cinema. So yeah, I'll admit I'm biased. Dacascos never became the household name that Lee, Norris, or Van Damme did, but his skill was right there with him. And maybe for that reason alone, Kickboxer 5 ranks higher than all the other sequels. So that's it for Kickboxer 5, but the saga doesn't end there. I've already covered the other sequels, 2, 3, and 4, so if you want more Saturday night VHS trash breakdowns, check those out next. And hey, hit subscribe while you're at it. And don't forget to check us out on the interwebs for more movie, news, lists, and reviews at screenagewasteland.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the wasteland.